Resentment is a trait that can apply to everyone, regardless of neurotype. So then what flavor is autistic resentment? As neurodivergents, we could be resentful about a lot of things: social alienation, difficulty within the social model of deficits, missed support opportunities caused by late diagnosis, or losing your parking spot when you were just circling back around to get to it after spotting it. Just kidding about that last one. That one pisses everybody off. But what I want to talk about today is something specific to the social difficulties of autism that leads many of us to try to find other ways of feeling accepted. And oftentimes, this is done by giving too much of ourselves. It's no secret that people with autism struggle to fit in, and so, as a matter of self-preservation, many of us try fitting in through giving of our resources and time or possessions as a mean to make up for what we lack in the social skills department. This could look like being the one to always bring the coffee and donuts to your book club meeting, even though it's really beginning to drain your budget, giving gifts, providing acts of service, or not setting healthy boundaries by telling people no, therefore giving too much of your time and energy, leaving little left over for yourself. And all of this can get us into some pretty tricky situations too. It leaves the door wide open for us to be taken advantage of, or to wasting our spoons and never truly being able to recover, or spending money we might not really have, putting us in a bad financial position. So why do we do this? Well, because while people on the spectrum may not be as good with social communication and interaction, we are damn good at routines and tasks. So we just do what we're good at. We might struggle with verbally communicating feelings, but we do care, so we might show it through acts of service. We may try to overcompensate for that lack of peer approval and recognition that seems to come so easily to everyone else. Neurotypicals seem to intuitively fit in and speak a secret language that we aren't fluent in. They have a natural ability to engage in a way that always feels just out of reach for the rest of us. We can't quite seem to be on the same page with our peers, and so we overcommit. We say yes to everything, and we literally give them things like food, money, or gifts. Most of these offerings clash with our own self-interests and leave us with an empty cup at the end of the day. And all too often, we expend twice as much effort and emotion behind the scenes to do the same things as a neurotypical person in an effort to uphold our end of a relationship. It's no big deal for a neurotypical person to attend a birthday party, but for us, we're enduring a noisy and crowded environment that could be a sensory nightmare. Not to mention, we sacrificed our precious task list and routines to be there. We commit to buying things from their kids' fundraisers, even though we know it's overpriced, we don't need it, and we don't have the money. We're working additional hours to take on more projects in the workplace to show our value in the company because we're not able to hobnob with the boss like that extroverted coworker in the cubicle next to us. Damn it, Chad! And we're giving up and conceding more than our fair share of pie to avoid conflict. But even though we put in twice the work, this exhaustive sacrifice oftentimes goes unnoticed because the end result of what we're doing for our peers looks the same as what a neurotypical person does. They don't see all the increased effort we're putting in. And to add insult to injury, after all of that, we still feel awkward and left out, and our neurotypical peers can still tell we're different. They have a better connection with Chad because he speaks their language, and he didn't even have to do anything. We quickly realize that no gift or act of service can fully replace connecting on an interpersonal and communicative level, a thing which eludes a lot of ND to NT relationships. And so we begin to build up resentment. We start to feel like our relationships with our colleagues, our friends, and even our loved ones are one-sided. We become angry at them for not realizing the huge sacrifices we made to bring them these offerings, things that seem so simple for other people to accomplish that took us 4 times as much effort. How could they not empathetically feel how much we gave up for them? Many autists also possess an unbridled power to get into negative thought loops and ruminate on things for far too long, intensifying these feelings of resentment and anger. And after a while, it might begin to manifest itself in concrete ways. We may start growing distant, becoming more passive-aggressive or contemptuous in our words and actions, or just burn relationship bridges entirely. But here's the kicker. A lot of times, the person on the other end has no idea that we're resenting them. They may not have asked us to give them our time, energy, and resources. We just volunteered them. They certainly don't know how much effort it takes for us to maintain that relationship, because masking means we hide it from them, yet we somehow still expect them to know how hard we're working to give back to them at the same time. Then one day we're pulling away from them and they have no idea why. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people out there who will take advantage of our willingness to give, but they're not the ones I'm talking about in this video on the receiving side. And love bombing and gift giving can be a tool used by abusers to manipulate and control on the giving side. They are also not the ones I'm talking about in this video. I'm solely talking about good intentioned neurodivergent folk grasping at straws to survive in a neurotypical world, because we want to feel like we belong, just like everyone else. We want real human connection as much as any other human being. But there's a divide we're desperately trying to reduce with the best tools at our disposal. The good news is many of us do have deep and meaningful personal relationships and connections with all sorts of neurotypes. But the double empathy problem means that mixed neurotype groups just have a little bit of a harder time communicating and understanding one another. So the difficulty level is set to hard mode for those of us trying to connect within our network. Now, I know it seems like I just threw a whole lot of negativity and hopelessness at you.
You know, I'm scrambling to find the silver lining here.
But let me assure you that that's not at all the point of this message. Part of why I wanted to share this is to give you relief in knowing that if you've experienced autistic resentment, you're not alone. Sometimes just knowing something isn't a reflection of being a crappy human being gives us more courage to tackle it. So here are a few possible tips and tricks we can all employ to mitigate this. The first is setting personal boundaries, and to do that, you have to listen to what your gut is telling you. This will mean having to say no more often. No is painful in the beginning, but what you have to remind yourself of is that oftentimes the yes is much more painful and more prolonged. Be kind to your future self, because future self will soon be current self. You might need to prepare a few scripted responses to a request that isn't no, but that gives you time to think about it. If someone asks you to go to your third cousin's best friend's boss's birthday, you might say, "That sounds really interesting. I'll check my calendar and get back to you about that." The second is that you may have to learn how to not suffer through as many tasks and action words that really offer little or no value to your life or to the relationship. Don't suffer going to your friend's Amway sales pitch when you're morally opposed to MLMs just because you think that sacrifice will add a beneficial checkmark to your relationship tally. A lot of us are tempted to go through the motions or pretend to be okay with things when we're not, because we think this makes us a good friend. But we need to change our mindsets and view these things as acts of dishonesty that aren't kind or helpful for the relationship. Since many autists gravitate towards honesty, viewing these things as an act of dishonesty might be helpful in our resolution to avoid them. And finally, find other ways to connect with coworkers or friends that is genuinely you. Talk about things you enjoy once in a while, or ask them if they want to do a board game night with you instead of a noisy concert. Because the truth of the matter is, there's a high likelihood that your sacrifices will only build autistic resentment within you that will damage the relationship down the road anyway, because it wasn't built on anything real to begin with. And all that hard work and sacrifice, all those parties, all of those yeses, and all of those extra projects you took on, will have been for nothing. If they don't like you for who you are, then maybe you don't need that kind of connection after all. But with all of that said, we have to be careful not to let the pendulum swing too far in the other direction. We don't want to suddenly become selfish jerks and say no to everything and hoard all of our time and resources either. And sometimes making sacrifices for others is the right thing to do.
You're sending me mixed messages, Rick!
There has to be a balance, and to accomplish that, you have to be willing to give yourself time to think so you can listen to your heart. Going back to what I said earlier, you have to listen to your gut. And if your gut is telling you it would be a pointless sacrifice, chances are it is. Unfortunately, I can't give any of you a solid flowchart of what this should look like, which is such an autistic thing to want, honestly. But like many things in life, this isn't black and white. What this looks like will differ from person to person, but recognizing the potential of overextending yourself leading to autistic resentment is probably a good first step. So I'll leave it there. If you've experienced autistic resentment, let me know in the comments below. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Until then, bye for now. Mwah! Damn it, Chad!